Welcome to the Backspace Academy Lab on creating a low-cost sync database for JavaScript applications with AWS. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Throughout the course, we're mostly going to be using Node.js on the server side. So we're going to be using JavaScript on the server. In this lab, I would like to go through and go from end to end to create an application, but create that application in the browser. And there's a number of reasons why you would want to do that, and they'll become clear as we progress through the lab. And I'd certainly want you to consider using JavaScript in the browser, especially if you're creating mobile applications or web applications that are going to have many thousands of users. So it's a very good use case for that. So what we're going to be doing is, again, we're going to be using the AWS JavaScript SDK in the browser. We're then going to be using Facebook to verify the identity of users. And then we're going to get a Facebook token and we're going to pass that to the IAM service to create temporary credentials for that federated user. So it helps us to basically create a temporary credential to access data, access AWS services without compromising your account. That will enable those federated users to store and secure their own data in Amazon S3 without affecting your data and without affecting other user data as well. And then we're going to allow that to be synced across all of the users' devices. So the way that that's going to work is we're going to use browser local storage, and then we're going to upload that data to Amazon S3, and we're going to synchronize across all the devices. So we're going to check the objects that are contained in Amazon S3, and we're going to check that against what is located in browser local storage, and then we're going to sync the storage. So this is a very similar approach to what is used with the Meteor framework. So if anyone knows that framework, they understand exactly how powerful that is and the benefits of using that framework. So what it means is that because we are using browser local storage, we're getting really high-speed access to our data. So again, this is perfect for mobile applications where you might have many thousands of users of your application, and you want to minimize your server-side costs. You also want to minimize the latency of accessing data, and you want to give the user a very good experience, a high-speed experience where they're accessing their data on their device very quickly. So again, very high-speed data on that client. Because you are replicating the data when you synchronize to that device, when you access data after that, it's going to be straight off the device. So you're going to minimize those server resources massively, and your data transfer costs will be minimized quite significantly as well. This is very important if you're running a $1 phone gap application, for example. You don't want to be paying more than that in your data transfer costs. So you keep that to a minimum. You're going to have the same data across all devices and all operating systems. It doesn't matter whether it's a phone or it's a tablet or it's a Windows desktop or whatever. It will be the same provided the device has a browser. It will be auto-scaling. It will be maintenance-free, being S3. You won't have to worry about designing an architecture. You won't have to worry about maintaining that architecture and ensuring the uptime of that architecture. Amazon Web Services will look after that for you. You just need to worry about writing browser-side code, which is fantastic. And if you have more powerful applications, and really the sky's the limit as far as what you can do on the browser side, with AWS Lambda, you can actually write Node.js applications without having a server and have that code executed on demand and pay for that by very small amounts of time. So that again is another very good option like Amazon S3, where you can actually have your code being run on Amazon Web Services without having to worry about the infrastructure behind that and worrying about designing and maintaining uptime for that server-side application. So and also the resource available to you is pretty well unlimited there. So that's a really good idea of using this as well, because the sky's the limit as far as the processing of resources that are actually available to you. And finally, it's a very, very low cost solution. You know, when you're doing stuff on the browser, the user is paying for that processing. The user is paying for that data access, and you're paying for the very minimum amount of serving when the devices are synchronized. The first thing we want to do is to create a bucket to host our web application on. So I've just created a bucket here, lab.backspace.academy. So you would create a unique one in whatever name you would like. So we just go into that there, and the first thing we would like to do is to enable website hosting on this bucket. So we go into Properties, and then we go Static Website Hosting. So this endpoint here is the one that we will use, so we need to take note of that, and we will use that when we're registering our Facebook application. So we just need to cut and paste that, or copy and paste that over. Index document will be index.html. We'll leave that there, and we click on Save. So the next thing we would like to do is to set up a CORS configuration. So what that enables us to do is to enable this bucket to be accessed through a different domain. So when we enable that and we give that permission to happen, it prevents or it allows the browser to access it. Otherwise, the browser will prevent that from happening. So we need to edit CORS configuration. We need to cut and paste our XML file that's in the lab notes here. So just put that in there, and then we click on Save. I've already got that in there, so I'll just close. That's fine. And that's that set up. So the next thing we need to do is to go into Facebook developers page, and you need to register as a Facebook developer to start with. Then we go into My Apps and add a new app. Now we've got a number of options here. So the option we will be taking here is website. We're creating a web application, so that's what we would do. So I'll just discuss these other options here. So we've got, if you're creating a native iOS app, and now that's a native app using the iOS software development kit, as opposed to a PhoneGap Cordova app, you would use that option. If you're doing an Android app, again a native app using the Android SDK in Eclipse or whatever, you would use that option. If it's a Facebook Canvas app, we would use that. So obviously we're going to use website. Now you would also use this option if you are creating a PhoneGap Cordova app. I'm not going to go into the details of how to do that. It is a little bit different. We use the same option here, but it is a little bit different because we treat PhoneGap Cordova apps as desktop applications, not web applications, so it is slightly different the way we do that. So if you would like to use this application to create a PhoneGap Cordova app, we have on the Backspace blog, so blog.backspace.academy, I've created some quite detailed tutorials on creating a PhoneGap Cordova app for Amazon Cognito. So you can use that same process at the start to create a Facebook app, and then to use that in PhoneGap Cordova to get your Facebook token. So once you've got your Facebook token, that's when you could come back and finish off from this space. So everything up in here up until you get that Facebook token is the same. Will be different, and then from there on it will be the same. So if you're looking at that, just go back into the Backspace blog and you'll be able to create a PhoneGap Cordova app. Not a problem. So we click on website, and we just need to skip this and create an app ID. Okay, so we're just going to put in some details here for display name. We won't put in a namespace. That's optional. That will be fine. Is this a test version of another app? No, it's not. And then we choose category. Will be we're doing a shopping list, so I guess it's food and drink. So once we've entered that in there, we just click on Create App ID. So just make sure we put in our name there, a unique name there for our app. Create App ID. A little bit of a security check here. What are we checking for? Showing select a tiger, so that's a tiger, okay. I guess that's a tiger. Okay, so we've successfully created the Backspace shopping list, or whatever your one is called, application there for Facebook. So the first thing we would like to do is to go into settings, and we need to add a platform. Okay, so we just click on add platform there and select website, and we need to put the URL of our site. So that is going to be that endpoint that we have for our static website hosting. So we just copy that over and save those changes. Now we need to go into the Advanced tab. Okay, so the little warning up there saying client OAuth login is enabled, but you haven't listed any valid OAuth redirect URL. So we need to add in our redirect URL for this application. So that is going to be in here, valid OAuth redirect URLs. So what that will be, it's going to be the your website domain followed by /auth /Facebook/callback. And then we can save that. And that warning goes away now. Now, rather than using our production application for doing all our testing, so we're going to create a test app that we will use, and then we will later on, when we're ready to go, we'll use the production app. So we've got to create a test app which will give us a different app ID. So create a test app, and we can just use that same there. So Backspace shopping list test one for our test app name. That is fine. So create test app, and again we're asked to select the tiger here. So that's that one. Okay, so now we have our test app. So we need to take note of this app ID, which will be different from the app ID for the other one. So when we go into Backspace shopping list, so that is our production environment or our production app there. So that is the app ID for that one. And then we go into our test app, which will be a different app ID. So that's the app ID we will use now. When we're going into a production mode, we would use the other app ID when we've done our testing. So we just need to take note of that. So now that we've got our Facebook app ID, we can use that to create federated users that can have temporary access to our resources. So we need to create an IAM policy first. So we go into IAM. So I've got these icons up here if you're wondering how to get them up there. It just makes life a little bit easier. You just go into Edit. So in here, Edit, and you can actually drag and drop these to over there and use them in a much quicker manner. So just if you'd like to put the services up there, I'd recommend doing that. That makes life a little bit easier rather than having to go through here and try and find it. So we just go into IAM. Okay, so we need to create a new policy. So go into Policies and Create Policy. And create our own policy. Okay, so we're just going to cut and paste everything over from the lab notes here. So it's going to have the policy name, and we're going to have the policy JSON here. So when you cut and paste that over, a number of things to be aware of. First is just cut and paste it using Control-C or whatever, don't use copy with formatting. It'll come through and won't validate properly when you click on Validate Policy here. There are two things here you need to do. You need to put in your own bucket name in here. So that is the actual bucket name. It's not the static website hosting endpoint. It is actually the bucket name here. So you put that in there, and you'll also need to put that in here. So what we're looking at here is we're actually, actually another thing to note here is the version statement. So that needs to be in. If you're creating policies like that and you leave the version statement out, it will still validate and it will still be accepted, not a problem. The only problem will be is that the policy variables that we've got in here will not be recognized unless that version statement is in there. So you need to make sure that is in there, otherwise it won't actually work. So the action that we're doing here is get and put on the object and delete on the object. So we're giving basically full read and write access to Amazon S3, but we're only giving that on a certain resource. And that resource is going to be for that particular bucket in a folder that is going to be in Facebook the ID of the federated user. And then we're going to give list bucket access as well, or permission, but we don't want them to have to be able to list the entire bucket. So we're going to put a condition on that that again restricts that to Facebook, to the folder that is Facebook their actual ID. So that's fine. So we click on create policy and it will create that and put it in the list here. So let's scroll down here. So there's our new policy. So what we can do is click on that and we can see that. So we can use that policy now in a role which will enable us to create our application to create federated users based on their login from Facebook. So let's go into roles. And we're going to create a new role. So we're just going to call this role Facebook backspace. Click on next step. Okay, so what we would like to do is to provide or create a role for identity provider access. So just click on role for identity provider access. So what we want to do is grant access to our web identity providers, being Amazon Cognito, log in with Amazon, Facebook, Google ID, or another OpenID Connect provider, and allow that to access this AWS account. So Facebook is what we're looking for here, so that's fine. So we click on select. Okay, so we're going to select Facebook. Now we need to get our application ID. So that is going to be the application ID of our test application, not our production application for now. We'll change that later, but for now it's our test application. So we just copy that and we'll bring that over into here and paste it in. So that's fine. Okay, so verify role trust. So we leave that as it is. And now we need to attach that policy that we created earlier. So there's our Facebook backpace policy that we created. We'll attach that. Now we can review it. So we've got our role name and AWS has created a role ARN. So we need to take note of that, our role ARN, because we will use that, we will reference that in our application, and that will enable us to federate users, will create federated users based upon their Facebook access or their Facebook login. The trusted entity is Facebook, and there's our policy that we created for this role. So we click on create role and that will be fine. Okay, so there's our role there all being created. So now it comes time to actually creating our application. So go to the GitHub site there that we've got referenced in the lab notes. And then just go in and download all of this. So just click on raw for each one of these files and just save as and just save them to a directory and just go through each one of those. So you got 3 of them: app CSS, app.js, and index HTML. So if you just go into all of those and click on raw and then save as and save them to a directory. So once we've got that in there, we can start looking at testing or having a look at our code and testing it. So here it is here that I've already brought in. And so what we've got, the index.html is not really something that you should be too concerned with this lab. It's purely and simply front end and user interface, so it's not going to have much of the stuff that we're interested in from a learning perspective. So I'll just go through what it is. So basically what we've got here is a main page, which is going to have a number of buttons there. So it's going to have a button for creating a list, reading a list, syncing with a cloud, and deleting a list. So we'll just go into the application itself and show that. Okay, so there's our application. So we've got a create list, read list, sync with cloud, and delete list. And each one of these will have a pop-up modal. Okay, so we've got create list, we can read a list. Sync with cloud doesn't have one. That just has the growl notifications here saying nothing to sync. That's fine. And delete list in there. So how that looks in here is, so we've got the main page there, and then we've got these three pop-up modals. So there's the create list modal, the read list modal, and the delete list modal. So that's the front end code that we don't need to be too concerned about. So what we will be interested in here is app.js. So have a look at app.js. Okay, so what we've got here is we've just got some declarations here for our Facebook app ID. So that will be our test app. So we put that in there. That will be the role ARN that we've got for our role that we created for federated user access. Our bucket name. Now our AWS config region, I've done mine in US East 1. And then we've got some other stuff here. And then we've got our S3. So we're creating new AWS S3, that's fine. And we'll get to that. So then we have some button events here. Okay, so this section here is quite complicated, and I'm not going to go into it too far. It's Facebook code. You shouldn't be too concerned about it for as far as passing an AWS exam. And if you are interested in finding out how this code works, then please go back to your Facebook developer site and have a look at the help for that. So then we've got here, the main thing to notice here is that we do have a callback for success. So a response status callback here for connected. And if it is connected, then we actually set up our AWS and pass that response object to set up AWS. So that is down here where we've got set up AWS. So what that does, it will grab the Facebook token from that response from Facebook. It will also have a look at the expiry time or the expiry date of that token. Now that would be represented in seconds from the time that we got that response. So we need to convert that to a date so that we can check whether the Facebook token has expired and whether the user needs to re-log in. We also get the user ID from that response. And then we create the prefix that we're going to use to create our Facebook. We're going to create our folder in our bucket, which will be Facebook-the Facebook user ID. Now, then what we do is we've got our S3 object, so we've got, which we created up here. So new S3, okay. And this is where we're going to create our federated user credential. So we do a new AWS web identity credentials. Our provider is going to be facebook.com. The role ARN is the role ARN that we created in IAM. And then the web identity token is going to be the Facebook token that we got passed through up here. So there's our Facebook token that was passed through from the response from Facebook. Then we're going to check if the user is logged in. Well, no, we're not going to check the user. We're going to say that the user is logged in because we've got a successful response. And then we're just going to do a console output. And then we're going to sync the shopping list, which we haven't created yet. We'll do that later. So if we scroll down here, we can see that we've got a create shopping list function. So this is obviously going to be called when we click on the create shopping list button. So first of all, we check if there's a valid login. If there's not, then we just exit out. The list name, so the name of the shopping list that we're creating, we're going to get that from the input field for that. We're going to check if that's not empty. Then we're also going to disable the create button so that if the user double clicks on the button, we don't create multiple copies of this. We're just going to show a spinner icon there that shows that we're busy. Then we're going to get the data from the user interface and populate that into an object. So we're going to put the list name in there, and then we're also going to grab the actual list. So the list of items that have been put in there by the user, and then we're going to look at last updated, which will be the current date. So that last updated field, we're going to use that to synchronize. So when we're looking at what is the most current data, whether it's on the cloud or on the device. And then we're going to create a variable key, which is going to be the name of the object and where we're going to store it. So it's going to be the prefix which we created before, which will be Facebook dash the user ID. So that's going to be the folder that we're creating to store this into, and then it's going to be the name of the list .json. So that's got to be the file that we're saving and where we're going to save it, and then we save that to local storage. Then we got to create key details, and that is going to be populated with the actual key, so the name of the shopping list. And again, we're going to put that last updated field in there. So the reason we're replicating this data here is that we're going to keep an index of all of these objects in one place, so that we can, instead of going to, when we're synchronizing, to go to each individual object and bring it in and check if it's check the last updated date on that. What we're going to do is select one file only, so we're going to massively reduce our data transfer costs if we're creating a popular application that's it's on mobile phones or whatever. So we're just going to grab that index, and we're going to check through that index to see whether any of those files need to be updated on the local storage, and then we're going to update those when we're synchronizing. So, okay, so we just add that to object keys.push. So object keys will be the index of all of our objects. And then we're going to also save that to local storage. So once we've done that, we can hide our spinner to say that we're completed. We can enable our create button again. And then what we've got here is load modals. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the newly created object to the drop-down lists of the read and delete modal. So we can actually select it and delete it, or select it and read it. And then we're just going to give a ground notification that it was successfully created. So when we've updated the code with our app ID, and we've also got the go into roles, and we get our role ARN and put that into the application as well. Then we can save it, and we can upload it to our S3 bucket. So we just click on upload, add those files in there. And we set details, set permissions, and we make sure that we select make everything public and start upload. So once that's done, we can then click on lab.back, or our bucket, and then we can click on properties, and we can go into our static website hosting, click on our static website, and we should get it coming up. Okay. So there's our application. It's on Amazon S3. It seems to be working okay. So let's try and create a list. Okay, so call this supermarket. And we'll add some items to the shopping list as well. So milk, eggs and breads, sort of things you get from a supermarket. So we click on create list. So currently not logged in with Facebook. Okay, not a problem. So it's telling us we need to log in with Facebook. So it can't get that Facebook token. It can't get that Facebook ID that it needs. So we need to log in. So let's click on login. Okay, so we'll just select that. Okay, so we're logged in now. Thanks for logging in. That's fine. Okay, so just click on create list now. We'll call this list supermarket. And we'll put in some items there, milk, bread and eggs, I guess. Okay, so now we can create the list. And there it says, shopping list successfully created. Wonderful. Okay, so let's have a look at reading that list, see what happened there. Okay, so there's our supermarket list. Milk, eggs and bread. Wonderful. Now, sync with cloud won't do anything because you haven't set that up yet. So we can go into delete list as well. So we can go in and delete our list. So select the supermarket and delete the list. And it's telling us that we've successfully deleted the list. So we go back into create list. We can create another one or read list and it shouldn't be there anymore. So you currently have no shopping list. So that all seems to be working fine. Okay, so now we can have a look at the actual local browser storage. So what we do is on our browser we press F12. If you're using Internet Explorer it will be slightly different, but not too different. So we can go into here into resources, local storage, and have a look at that. So that's it there. And we can see that we've got our object keys BSL index, which is currently empty because we deleted the item. So we just go in there and create that item again. Shopping list created, and we close it. We can see there it's all of a sudden put that in there. And then we've also got the object keys index has been updated with the last updated date and the keys, so the actual item details there. So that's all quite good. So we can go back into our console here and we can actually type in local storage. And that will also give us the details of local storage through there. And that's the same on Internet Explorer there. So we can see there we've got our list names there, and which is in our supermarket.json file. And then we've also got objects BSL, which is the object keys BSL, which is the index of all the items. And so we've got that added into that array there as well. So we've got supermarket.json and we've added the last updated date for that. So what I'd like to do now is just delete the local storage. So because we're going to, what we do is local storage, going to local storage .clear. Okay, so local storage.clear, and that will clear local storage for us, and it will return undefined. That doesn't mean that it didn't work, it just returns undefined, so don't get too concerned about that. So if we do local storage again, we can see that all of a sudden it's local storage, there's nothing in it at all, so it's been deleted. So I just want to do that so that we can set up now, so when we do the next stage of it, we don't have this interfering with that, so we're going to be able to sync with our S3 storage. So we'll now just go back into our code and have a look how it all works. So we've had a look at create shopping list. So let's have a look at read shopping list. So that's just basically going to go and have a look at our index that contains all of our objects. And if there's nothing there, it'll just get out of that and say you have no shopping list. Otherwise, it's going to put the details of the shopping list in that field, and it's going to read it from local storage. So then we've got the other one, delete shopping list. So it's going to go through again, check if there is an object there to delete. If not, then it's just going to say you've got no shopping list. So then it's going to go into there, disable the delete button so we don't do it twice. It's going to get the key or the name of the shopping list out of the index, and then it's going to delete that, and then it's also going to delete it from the index, and then it's going to save that back to local storage. It is then going to load the modal, so it's going to update the modal so it doesn't have that in the drop-down list anymore, and give it a notification that it's all been successful. And that seems to be working fine. So let's have a bit further down and have a look at what we've got here. So here we've got the save local storage function. So that's a local storage set item command. You can check your JavaScript documentation for that and see how that works. And then we read local storage. So first of all, we check whether there is an item to get from the local storage. So if there is, we go through. Otherwise, we don't. Otherwise, we're going to get an error. Okay, so we check for an error. This basically makes sure that we check for an error before we actually go and try and do anything with that object. So we just need to JSON parse. Okay, so what that's all about is to store to local storage, we need to convert it to a string. So currently, what we're sending to local, or what we've got is a JavaScript object. So then we need to get that JavaScript object, convert it to a string, and then store it in local storage. So that's what JSON stringify there is doing. Then when we get it back out, we need to get it from a string and back into a JavaScript object. So that's where we're doing JSON parse, so we're bringing it out. So JSON stringified, I put it in, JSON parse when we bring it out. And then we've got local storage. So we, again, we go through, there's another command there of local storage, JavaScript command, remove item. So we can remove that item from local storage as well. So then we've got here load the object key. So we're getting that from local storage, checking if it's empty, and then we're just giving a message saying yes, we've loaded that. That's fine, and we do that on startup. And then we've got here the code that loads the modals with or loads a drop down list with the details of those JavaScript objects. And we've got our ground notification. So that's basically how that works, and it seems to be working fine. So now what we need to do is to connect it to Amazon S3 and create these functions here to save it to S3, to delete it from S3, and to synchronize our shopping list by checking against local storage and synchronizing the local storage against S3. Okay, so I've gone through that quite quickly, and the reason being is that the course is not on JavaScript programming, so I'm not here to go into great details on how to program in JavaScript. What we will be doing is we will be going into quite significant detail in the next part of this lab, and that will be going into using the asynchronous nature of JavaScript. And this is where JavaScript is quite powerful, be it on the browser or on Node.js on the server, taking advantage of the asynchronous nature of JavaScript to get the most out of Amazon Web Services. And then we use that to synchronize very quickly with Amazon S3 to our local devices. So the way that's going to work is that we're going to first get the S3 object that contains the index of all of our shopping lists. And we're going to get that from Amazon S3 first. Then we're going to go through the list one by one. So we're going to get the first object from the list, which will have the name of that object and the last updated date. So then we're going to get the local object that we have on our device, if there is one. And then we're going to have a look at the last updated date. So if the S3 is a newer update, then we're going to transfer the information from, or the object from S3. We're going to copy that to local storage. If the S3 is an older update, then we're going to copy the local object to Amazon S3. And If it's neither, then we just keep going back around until we go through the entire list, until we get to the last S3 object on that list, and then we finish. So that's the way we're going to do that, and we'll get into it, and we're going to do it on an asynchronous basis. So we're not going to be waiting for things to happen. We're going to basically fire off a whole heap of requests to Amazon Web Services, and we're going to allow the async.js package to manage that and collect all those responses and sort them out individually for us. So we'll be doing that, and I'll see you in the next lesson.